My fiance, 31 male, and I, 25 female, are getting married soon. There wasn't much that I disagreed on during the wedding planning except for food. My family and I are vegans, and there are so many reasons we chose this lifestyle, one of which is that we have a history of health issues. My fiance and his family are the complete opposite. They're hardcore meat eaters, which is fine by me. However, I wanted to add 4 to 5 vegan options when deciding on the wedding food menu. My fiance and his mom objected, saying it was a waste of money over food that isn't real. They also argued that this would be offensive for their guests and suggested my vegan options be the good old salads and appetizers. His mom wanted cupcakes, LOL. I said no because, for one, it's my family and me who are paying, and two, I want to make my guests feel welcome and not to be treated as second-class citizens by being served salad. My fiance made a face and said, "Isn't that what vegans eat?" I refused to argue about it and said it was final. The other day I found out that he had canceled all the vegan options and took them off the menu entirely behind my back. I was seething. I called him at work, but he kept hanging up on me. I went straight to his workplace, confronted him there, and flipped out on him. He was stunned to see me. He at first said it was his mom's idea, and then told me to go home because I was making a scene at his office. The fight continued at home, and he defended himself by saying that I sort of made him resort to doing this after I kept brushing off his thoughts and input and refusing to accommodate his family. But there are plenty of meat options. Why can't I get 4 to 5 vegan options when I'm paying for it? He yelled that it was his wedding too, not my family's. My family said it was fine and they'll figure it out and told me to let it go, but I refused. Am I the idiot for putting my foot down on this? Not the idiot. So he has no clue what vegans actually eat and no interest in learning. He believes having food for your family is offensive to theirs, while having no food for your family is perfectly fine. He doesn't respect your input and your money. He makes decisions about matters important to you behind your back. He either can't stand up to his mom or uses her as a scapegoat. There's a lot of things to be really angry about. Why are you marrying this guy again? The other very toxic trait is hanging up when she calls him to discuss something important to her. What an absolute child OP's about to marry. Wait until you have kids, OP. He and his mother are going to drive you insane. She'll look back at this moment, realizing it should have been her sign to run. Imagine, God forbid, the kids have allergies that stop them from eating things that everybody takes for granted, like peanuts or certain fats. I can already see mother-in-law going, "There's no such thing as an allergy to." I'm not the breakup over anything type of person, but this dude isn't able to handle an adult relationship with mutual respect, and at his age, that's worrying. And another worrying thing is that he's together with a vegan and obviously has no clue what vegans eat. I mean this sincerely. Reconsider marrying him. It's not about the food. It's about the secrecy and manipulation, the disrespect for your feelings, and the disregard for your money. Yes, OP, please get out now. Not only are you the one paying for the food, but a wedding is something you plan as a couple. He felt like you and your family's well-being during the catering wasn't as important as his. His mommy says salads and cupcakes are fine, so he cancels any food the family paying can eat? I'd cancel the wedding if I were you. He and his mommy are massive, massive idiots. I would consider my 32 male family generational military. We have ancestors that fought in World War I and beyond. I grew up moving from place to place, going long stretches without seeing my father, and I hated it. Anytime I'd say I missed my dad or wished I could see him more, I was quickly told to be quiet and proud of my dad for being a hero. I once was upset we had to move because I was finally making friends and was told not to be selfish. I'm one of 4 kids. My brother and sisters all enlisted at 18. I chose not to, and while I'm not the only person in my extended family to do so, I knew it was disappointing. Originally, I decided not to enlist because I didn't want to be in the military. However, in time, after learning more about it, I find the concept predatory and wrong. I've never told my family this. I went to college, got my dream job, and married my wife. We have 2 beautiful daughters, pre-K and pre-tween. Because of my own upbringing, I do my best to be at every recital, school concert, soccer game, etc. In addition, I help my eldest with her homework and have special days with them separately and then as a family. Recently, I had the opportunity for a promotion that would require traveling 2 weeks out of the month. My wife and I briefly considered it before deciding it wasn't worth it in the long run. We do well financially, and the extra money wouldn't be worth her raising our kids alone half the month and me missing out on so much. The promotion came up during a family party. My father's now retired and he was there. When he heard me mention it, he asked why I would want to pass it up. I said I don't want to miss out on my girls' childhoods or have them feel like I abandoned them. My dad's chest puffed out and he said that was a drive-by. I was confused, and he said I had never been quiet about being unhappy as a military kid. He went on a rant about him not being an absent dad, and I was an ungrateful brat, not patriotic, telling me to move to Canada if I hated America so much. I said I don't hate America. I hated growing up without a physically present father. He said he was fighting for our country, and I said that was a choice, and I'm allowed to not agree with it. My wife, my kids, and I left shortly after. My wife agrees with my point, but said I was an idiot for wording my reasons for not taking the promotion as I did. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Your dad's insecure, childish reaction says it all. It's also guilt that he would never admit. Any decent dad would have said, I know me being gone so much caused you a lot of pain, and it makes me sad. I made the best decision about my career and responsibility, but I know that it had some major drawbacks. I'm glad you get to be a father who gets to be around for your kids, since that's important to you. You are a great father by putting your children's lives first. Being present in their upbringing will forever be better than any job promotion. Your father got defensive because he knew you were right. Don't listen to him. You are doing the right thing. There's nothing wrong with wanting to put your children first, and you're not an ungrateful brat. It's not your fault he chose war over his son. He can't handle the truth. Funny you'd think a military man would have thicker skin and be able to hear hard truths. I'm sorry your childhood was sacrificed, but I can see why your dad believes what he does if he's generational military. He was spoon-fed patriotism from birth, but don't make that your problem. You do you and raise your family the way you like. Good for you. My grandparents own a big old cabin where every generation after them has enjoyed annual family vacations. Due to the cabin's age, constant maintenance needs to be done. Every time we've replaced, fixed, or repaired something, there's another thing that needs fixing. We also started slowly renovating the cabin as the interior has become quite dated. These costs have become too much for my grandparents to handle alone, especially since their age means they can't do much of the work themselves, and they need to hire professionals instead. This has caused them to implement a fee system. The rule is as follows. Every person from the age of 20 must pay an annual fee to be allowed to stay at the cabin. The size of the fee varies, as it's calculated according to how many people plan on using the cabin and how high the upkeep costs were the previous year. I've happily paid this fee since the rule was implemented, and so have my parents, aunts, uncles, and cousins. Every summer, my extended family tries to find a weekend during the summer where most of our vacations overlap so that we can all meet at the cabin and catch up. So I decided to invite my girlfriends along, as I wanted to introduce her to this tradition, as she's someone I imagined spending many future summers at the cabin with. She was ecstatic about the idea of meeting my extended family and going to the cabin, as she's very curious about it after hearing me talk about it a lot. Naturally, I sat her down and told her about the rule and how she needed to pay, as everyone else paid, and it was only fair for her to do since she'd be using the cabin when coming with me this year. Unfortunately, this year's fee is around $200 to $400, depending on how many people use the cabin, due to a big roof leak and some pretty substantial water damage. The idea of paying this fee upset her, and we had a big argument where she concluded by saying she'd make other plans without me this summer. The rule is straightforward and made completely fair to everyone. I don't understand why she thinks she should be exempt from it. My brother told me I should pay her fee for her, as my extended family really would like to meet her. But I don't really think that's fair for me to pay double the fee when she's completely capable of paying it herself? Am I the idiot? Hey baby, I love you, and my family would love to meet you now that we've gotten serious. Now, would you like to pay to meet my family with cash or credit? You are the idiot. She's perfectly within her rights not to want to spend $200 to $400 for a weekend at a shared, broken-down cabin. It's not her family's property. She has no emotional attachments to it, and she may never reap the benefits of fixing it up. If she pays the fee and she only visits this one time and OP and she break up, is she entitled to use the rest of her contribution? Any refunds? Dude, she's your guest, not a family member who agreed to pay into the communal fund. Paying $200 to $400 to stay in a crappy cabin for a weekend with a bunch of strangers is an absurd ask. She might be expected to contribute if she ever chooses to marry OP, but as long as she's not part of the family, she shouldn't be expected to pay. I mean, would OP also expect her to pay half his rent at his place if they're living separately? Just because she occasionally visits his home? And she's already made plans this summer without him. I don't blame her. In Scotland, a common phrase goes, he peels an orange in his pocket, which means someone is so cheap they don't want anyone to see them peel an orange for fear someone may ask for a segment. Usually kind of reserved for outrageously cheap or miserly behavior. You would be described as peeling oranges in your pocket, OP. You are the idiot. No question. However, I'm sure your girlfriend will look forward to many summers spent with you and your cheap, rude family. What a joy for her. When I married my soon-to-be ex, she had 4 bio children, 3 boys and a girl, and 2 adopted daughters from Colombia and South Korea. We have 1 child, male toddler. In addition, my 2, daughter and son from my previous relationship, live with me full-time, as their mother doesn't care much about her custody time. I've known my soon-to-be ex, Sally's, bio children every 2 weeks for the past 4 years. Her 2 adopted daughters live with us, as her ex doesn't want anything to do with them, as he has the daughter he's always wanted. Sally lived at her mother's mother-in-law suite for now, with all of her children. Sally wants to leave her adopted girls with me as part of the divorce proceedings, as she too doesn't want them, as she feels she now has a bio daughter and has no need for them anymore. She's adamant that she should not have them, as the adoption agency cheated her. The Korean one is not as Eurasian as she had hoped, but half Vietnamese and South Korea. I don't want them, as I've never been a father figure, and the girls still talk about her ex as their dad, despite no contact for so long. I simply can't afford more children than what I already have. I reported her to CPS when she mentioned she would rehome them if I didn't take them. I called CPS on her, and they contacted her ex-husband's workplace as he works with children. He's temporarily on unpaid leave while being investigated for neglect. Sally will now be investigated too. In the meantime, CPS has custody of all her children. My son is with me. She's called me every name under the sun and doesn't understand why I won't take them, as I have space in my house and experience with the girl, as I have a daughter. She says I overreacted and we could have solved this in a different way. Am I the idiot for reporting to CPS? Those poor kids. They adopted the girls and then had a bio daughter, so they no longer need or want them? Who are these awful people? Kids aren't dogs that you rehome. I guess you had no other choice, and I don't know what else you could do. Not the idiot. What a circus. You never adopted her children. She can't just leave them in your care. You know she doesn't care for those children anyway, since she's wondering why OP wouldn't just take them, since he has the space. Taking in not 1 but 2 kids is the same as making some space in your home for an extra sofa. She deserves to be investigated and punished by CPS, not only because rehoming her kids after she gave birth to a daughter is extremely cruel, like kids are some collectible items that you discard or exchange when you get a copy, but also because I don't think she's even doing the bare minimum to take care of them. 2 adults taking care of 9 kids is crazy, and she seems to lack the love and dedication you would need to be capable of raising that many kids. Everyone's the idiot here. 8 kids between the 4 of you? and then you two decide to bring another one into the mix? These poor kids. You are all crap parents. Kids aren't things you can just get rid of because you finally got the one you want. Everybody's really skimming over the fact that he had another bio child with her when they already had 8 children. Unless they're very, very rich, don't have to work, and have all the time in the world to spend with 9 children, including a newborn. In what universe does that sound like a good idea? I feel sorry for all those kids. Reader logic, man. Agreed. Everyone's the idiot here. My dad learned about this last week, but I got the award at the start of May. Background. My parents are divorced, and until I was 7, my parents shared custody of me. My dad was remarried at the time and had 3 stepkids. His oldest stepkid's dad was moving for work, and she wanted to move with them, and the court said she could. However, my dad's wife didn't want to be apart from her oldest or to separate her 3 kids, so she wanted to move as well. When Dad told me, I begged him to stay. He told me he had to be with his family and that them staying was not an option, so I told him he could stay for me. But again, he said no. So he moved with them, and then I went from seeing him all the time to seeing him for a few weeks in the summer. I never forgave him for moving. Over the years, they attempted to make it appealing for me to live with them, saying I'd have siblings all the time and how great it was there and stuff. But I never wanted to leave my mom, and I was too mad that he picked them over me, so I faded from him over time. I only speak to him during court-mandated times, and I don't see him unless I absolutely have to. He tries, but his choice was made when he moved, and my opinion on that is unchanging. My dad found out via Facebook about the award. Unfortunately, my school only put the photos up a week ago, and my dad was really upset. He told me that he or they could have flown out to show support, and it would have been a nice extra visit for us. I asked him what was the point, that his choice was made 9 years ago, and that they were more important and my life didn't involve them anymore. He went on about him being my dad and deserving to know, and how proud he was, etc. And why couldn't I see that? And why was I out to hurt him? I told him I wasn't trying to hurt him, but that I was never going to have that relationship he wanted after he left me to be with his family, and that all choices have consequences, which he and my mom taught me, and that now he's living with his, and that his daughter doesn't want a relationship with him anymore. His wife called afterward and told me I should have told him, and regardless of how I feel, he has a right to know. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. He chose to leave you. I think the bigger idiot here is the wife. She wanted to move to be near her daughter, but couldn't care less about him not getting to be near his daughter. Her daughter chose to leave her mom to be with her dad. You didn't choose to leave your father. You got left behind. So no, you don't owe him anything. He left to be with his new family without thinking about what it would do to your relationship with him. If the wife calls you again, tell her that all of this results from her being selfish when her daughter decided to leave her. Imagine looking your 7-year-old child in the face and saying, I can't stay here and be your dad. I have to move to be with my family, and not expect there to be consequences? Big not the idiot. What you have there, babes, isn't a petty grudge. That's trauma, and it's valid. If I were you, I'd block him on Facebook and from your phone. He doesn't get to, quite literally, leave you in the dust and then attempt to guilt you into a relationship. He hasn't earned and doesn't deserve anything from you. My husband and I, 30s, haven't been on a trip out of the country for years, while he goes every year with his best friend. His reason for going with him is that they both attend sporting events. This year, my husband told me I could go with him and his friend, since they were visiting a new destination. He paid for my ticket and everything else, since I'm a stay-at-home mom and have no job. The kids were left with my mom. However, I found out that he had booked first class for himself and his friend, while I got economy. I just couldn't hold my tongue. I confronted him about it, and he at first refused to discuss it. Then when the argument got heated, he yelled, I paid for your ticket, isn't that enough? Then kept on about how I should stop acting like I was royalty, and that if I came to think about it, even economy is fine for me, since I technically don't work anyway. I cried because of what he said, but decided not to go altogether. He changed his tone and started begging me to just go with his plan, but I declined. I went to pick up the kids from my mom's house, and he came back 3 hours later, huffing and puffing about what had happened. His friend sent me a text calling me entitled and said this was why he didn't want my husband to take me with them, and I just proved his point. I didn't respond, but I blocked him since he's gotten increasingly rude over the past few months. He, my husband, said I keep crying about being excluded, and this is what happens when he finally decides to include me. So, am I the idiot for not settling for the economy seat? By the way, he's perfectly capable of financing the trip. Not the idiot. He said that you technically don't work anyway. Your labor, raising children, running the household, is work, even if it's unpaid. It's work that enables him to work outside the home and also not have to deal with all the childcare and other domestic labor or pay someone to do it. And if this is the division of labor you and your husband have, you stay home, he works for pay. The money he earns at his job isn't his money. It's your money as a couple. You should leave him. He doesn't think of you as a partner or even as a full person. I'm sorry. I know that sucks to hear, but better to get out now than continue to put up with this man and his foolishness. Wow. He and his friend are idiots. Does your husband always treat you as less than? Does he often talk down to you? Exclude you? Treat you poorly? Because if I go off this post alone, you need to get out and take your kids with you. Find someone who genuinely loves and respects you. He doesn't care about you as much as he does about his friend, which is backward as heck. Is he having an affair with his friend, or does he just disrespect and not value you as much as he does his friend? Is this just his general view of women? You as his wife and the mother of his children should always take priority over his friend. Why don't you? The fact that his friend texted you to insult you? Screw his friend. He should mind his business. And bringing up why he doesn't take you is sus, because then that means there's been a reason why they haven't included you on these sports trips, which sounds like total bull, because what sport has been happening yearly at the same destination that's so important for men in their 30s to attend out of state? And he can buy this friend expensive crap, but not you, who's literally full-time taking care of his kids for free? Your husband is working the bare minimum. Also, I'm just wondering if something else is going on with these two. A true friend would have said, "Oh my gosh, this is awful. I'm switching seats with you, so you sit with your spouse," and not arguing with you. But seriously, OP, why stay with a man who clearly has zero respect for you? Then when you get divorced, you'll be surprised to learn the money belongs to both of you, regardless of who earns it. Our daughter is turning 18 next month. She's a great kid, always pulled straight A's, is never in any type of trouble, and she's very respectful. However, my wife recently decided to have a talk with her about adult responsibilities. I didn't know about this conversation until my daughter came to me crying because she was scared about living alone. I was initially confused, but then she told me that her mother said she needs to start looking for a job because she'll be expected to get her own place after her birthday. I was appalled because we never discussed throwing her out at 18. When I confronted my wife, she said our daughter wasn't a child anymore and needed our push to become an adult. I told her I was baffled she would exclude me from such a serious decision and conversation. I asked my wife how she expects our kid to make it on minimum wage, especially considering our area's rent is out of control. She then informed me she had planned for us to pay half her rent until she was 20. I asked her why she wanted our kid gone so bad. As the argument intensified, I believe she slipped by saying that she needed the space, her bedroom, for her art studio. I couldn't believe it. I told my wife if her hobby was more important than our daughter, she should be the one looking to rent. However, she took that as me saying move out, but that's not how I meant it. I was implying that she should rent more space for her studio and leave our daughter alone. She didn't believe that's what I actually meant. She then gave me the silent treatment for 3 days. Our daughter, however, was still upset as she processed her mother wanting to move out. She realized moving into a rental meant leaving her 2 cats behind. She's had these cats since she was a young child, and that alone devastated her. She told me, "I don't want to turn 18. I don't want to celebrate my birthday." I picked the argument back up with my wife at that point. I said our daughter isn't moving out until she decides on her terms because she's more important than you or your hobby. She looked stunned, and maybe I didn't choose my words wisely in the heat of the moment. I couldn't bear to see our daughter so upset any longer. I don't want her struggling to make ends meet and unable to follow her dreams. The last thing I want for her is to feel rushed. As far as my wife goes, she's not talking to me at all, and she's been cold towards our daughter. Not the idiot. Your wife is. While 18 may very well be the age you become an adult, 18 is not an age where most people are prepared to live on their own. Your wife is wrong because she should have had a conversation with you before arbitrarily making an idiot decision. It may be time to take a good hard look at your marriage. Putting an art studio ahead of a child's welfare and well-being is ludicrous. Not to mention, you don't stop being a parent when your child is 18 or 20 or any other age. You should be there for your kid, and they'll be there for you. If the daughter's kicked out to make space for an art studio, I doubt she'd feel good coming to her parents for help if she ever needs it. I definitely wouldn't. Does she even like her daughter? Is she her stepmom or what? This is the hill to die on. You weren't that far off when you said maybe your wife should rent instead. How unbelievably cruel is she to her child to prioritize an art room over her daughter? Parents who kick out their kids and expect them to be financially independent as soon as they're legal are setting them up for failure. You are the idiot because you made your wife the villain and have clearly put a line in the sand about who's more important, something you won't be able to recant easily, if ever. I have no idea about your history with your wife, but I'd be angry and hurt too if my husband told me my 18-year-old, who I've helped raise, is now more important than me as your partner. Agree. Dude, you should have been preparing your daughter for adulthood for years. Now all of a sudden she's facing the reality of adulting, and she's that unprepared? What high school graduate cries and begs theatrically at the idea of getting a job in an apartment of her own? What did this girl expect to be doing with her adult life, if not either college or a career? Part of the work of parenting is preparing the kid to be independent. I recently got married and moved to Italy to live with my husband and his family. My husband had some work he needed to do on my first official day of living in Italy, so he asked his younger brother and his other brother's wife to show me around. His brother's wife is lovely, but his younger brother is such an arrogant, condescending idiot. Our families have known and worked with each other for years, but I don't know him very well, and I wasn't aware there was some weird competition between our families. We had lunch with his cousins, and the entire time they were criticizing my brother. When I tried to defend him, my younger brother-in-law told me I was a little girl, so I didn't understand these things. I'm older than him and he's barely an adult, so I was really angry he said that to me. I told him I was going home because he was an idiot, and he told me I couldn't, as my husband told him I needed to stay with him until he came home, and so that's what I was going to do. His brother's wife tried to salvage the situation by telling me to ignore him and suggesting we go shopping. Even the way he agreed to us shopping was annoying, so I was just very annoyed by the time I decided to use the crowd to ditch them and leave. I ended up going to meet my husband and his other brother. My husband was upset I was alone and wanted to know what happened. My husband blew up at his younger brother, who was upset that I left the way I did and made them waste time searching for me when he saw him. He insisted I had issues, and it wasn't his fault that I didn't understand that my loyalties should be to my husband now. I told him he was angry that a little girl had bested him, making him even angrier. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot, but you're hilarious. I can understand your husband being disturbed that you're alone in a country new to you, and because his brother ran you off. Inform your husband that you no longer want to be set up to be shown anything by the disrespectful brother that's barely an adult trying to talk down to you. I do think you need to apologize to sister-in-law though. You probably made her worry. It sounds like they live in a very old-fashioned belief that women are mere accessories and should listen to men. You did the right thing. Don't dare allow this little boy to start telling you how to feel and how you should be acting. He might live in the old ways, but you don't. Of course, I'm also assuming you're not Italian, so you're not obligated to change your ways to fit in. I can't stop laughing at this chauvinist idiot. Someone's big boy hair must have just come, and they don't know how to handle all that raw masculinity yet. Ha ha. Good for you for pushing back on his misogynistic BS. Also, glad your husband had your back also. My mom married Jeff when I was 6 years old. My dad died 2 months earlier, but my parents were divorced then. Jeff and his daughter Emma lived in another state, and we all moved to a new place to start over. I met Jeff and Emma 2 weeks after my dad died. Mom made a fast move because she could now, with Dad not being able to stop her. Right from the get-go, Emma's been clingy, possessive, and kind of a little creepy too. I didn't like her from the first day we met because she told me Jeff was my dad and that I needed to learn how to be a family with them. After all, she wanted a sister and a mom. It upset me so bad because I was missing my dad. He wasn't gone that long, and I had this strange girl tell me to replace him already. I told her that her dad wasn't my dad, and I miss my dad. She told me she didn't care and things were different. I went to my mom, who told me to give Emma and Jeff a chance, and Emma likely got overexcited. Emma has continuously made life so awkward for me. She insisted we share a bedroom, to which my mom and Jeff said yes, despite having a spare bedroom. She started wearing my clothes and telling me I could wear hers. All of this was fine with Mom and Jeff. She hated how I kept in touch with my best friend back home. She hated it even more when, a year later, my best friend's family moved nearby and we got to see each other again versus just talking over the phone. She was rude to her, told her to leave me alone, and told me I had to spend time with her instead of my best friend. Emma tore up photos of my dad and told me that he was the past and that she and Jeff were the future. She didn't get in trouble for that, but then I got into trouble for not letting it go. I was 9 at the time, I think. Emma tells everyone I'm her sister and we're so close, whereas I'm more honest with people I'm close to and don't hold back on how unhappy I am at home. Over the years, nothing has changed much, only she's far more obsessive now. Jeff doesn't like me because he really doesn't like that I don't consider him my dad. I don't think of him as a parental figure, even though I know he is. I don't love him and I hate Emma, which he also knows. My mom has talked to me before about being nicer to Emma and to stop pushing her away so much. She got on my case again because I wouldn't go to summer camp with Emma. We're both teens now, by the way, that she wanted to go to, which allowed almost like a sibling experience. Emma went solo and I stayed, so Mom was on me a lot, and I eventually snapped and told Mom that she needed to fix how possessive Emma was and do better by me because I'm her daughter. I lost my dad and she threw me into such a messed up dynamic and never cared about what it did to me. I told her at the very least that she needed to keep Emma away from me. Mom was mad and said I portrayed Emma as some sort of bad person. She's still mad. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Emma sounds terrifying. To want to have a sister and a mom is one thing, but what she's been doing is creepy. From the way you put it, she's trying to alienate you from everyone and force you to accept her and her dad as the only people you can turn to. It sounds like the beginning of a horror movie. On the other hand, your mom is a major idiot for how she's handled things. I would move out at the first opportunity and cut all contact. This is not healthy, and I'm honestly scared for you. How could you see Jeff as a parental figure when he's failed to make you feel safe in your own home? He needs to get his little demon seed child under control. I'm sorry for the loss of your dad and that your mom is checked out from her job as a parent. Maybe try telling your mother that once you're 18, she will only have to worry about one daughter because it seems like she only cares about your step-sibling anyway. Yikes, I'm so sorry. If you can stay with your best friend's family, I'd look into it and maybe some counseling if you haven't already had any regarding your loss. If I were OP, I would remain silent on my plans and slowly move things out, like contact my paternal grandparents if they're on my side and get ready to escape. Never disturb the snakes in the grass. My niece, Teen, has lived with me since her parents passed away about a year ago. She knows how to drive, but her driving's not very good. She's only allowed to drive my car when I'm with her to help her learn more. She asked me to let her drive the past few nights, but I was too busy. Last night, she went out of home with my car and slightly hit the wall. I was and still am very angry because my car is new and expensive. I grabbed all her electronics and I told her I'd sell them and use the money to fix my car. She cried and begged me not to because her dad had bought them for her. She promised to pay for them if I didn't sell them, but I don't see that happening because she doesn't have a job. I might be an idiot because I don't need the money and can pay for it myself, but I want to do this to teach her a lesson. My wife says I'm an idiot though, so I don't know. You are the idiot, big time. Teens make mistakes and her recently dead dad gave her those. You couldn't be a bigger idiot in this situation if you sold them. Forgive her and talk her through it like an adult that's in charge of raising a kid. Agreed. I want to emphasize the part about it being a gift from her dad. I lost my mom when I was a kid, and a former stepmother threw away some of the things of mine like this that my mom had given me. It's been over 13 years, and there's still not a day that I don't wish I had those items. Doing something like that wouldn't be a punishment. It would just be cruel. Agree. Finding some chores or something for her to work off the damage would be the appropriate consequence. Getting rid of the possessions her dead parents gave her is not. Not sure how you find this appropriate. It sounds to me like he's doing it out of spite. He says it's to teach her a lesson, but I think really he's angry and it's his way of excusing his behavior. Accidents happen. If you want to teach her something, teach her how to drive better. Update. Thank you for your suggestions. When I saw both her and the car were gone, I knew what had happened. All I could think about was what if something had happened. I was so worried and angry I couldn't think straight. I told her I wouldn't sell them, but I'll keep them until she paid for the damage, which she'll do by babysitting our child, a female toddler. I didn't ask her to do this because she's made it clear that she hates babysitting, but she suggested she could do this. So if she wants to do this, it's fine by me.